is the illusion. Of course, even Albert Einstein said this is an illusion, but a very persistent one. And if he thought it was an illusion, you have to, well, he knew a few things. I think he was probably right about that. But what does she do? Because people tell us there's everything in the world to do there, and it's a lot of fun. What does she do for fun?
Well, one thing I would like to mention right away though is besides the flashing lights, I was getting a lot of signs and manifestations, and of course they're all in the books. But one of the things that really was very interesting to me is that I would awaken in the middle of the night, like at 2:30 in the morning, and fully awake. I would see her she would be standing in full color at the foot of my bed for just 2 or 3 seconds, and smiling and looking like she was about 35 years old,
yeah,
rather than the age that she was when she passed away.
Right. That's a beautiful story. See, this is how we know all of this is real, everyone, because they all are variations of the same story. I mean, nobody else is telling the story Ward is telling, but the details of it are so similar. Yes, she would look young and beautiful. Everybody does when they're seen from there. It's difficult to hold an image when you are a person out of body and you're trying to show yourself to someone you love. But when they're just coming out of sleep, they're much more susceptible to being able to see you. So she shows up then, and he sees her. I mean, all of these are very consistent stories across, everywhere, from everywhere. So it's an exciting kind of study to do, I think, because it's also consistent. There's no outliers at all. And there's no fear there, right? Does she talk about that? What the atmosphere is?
Well, there's no fear. No, there's no disease. There's no fear at all. Everything is light and joy. Just tremendous joy, tremendous feeling of joy. And but to answer your question, she lives a life just like she almost lived on Earth, and she goes to concerts. She studies biology, which was her favorite subject, and takes walks in the woods with her father, and amazingly, she takes walks in the woods with her dog, which preceded her in death.
Yes, see, there's something else great that we already know. Every animal you ever have loved is waiting for you. Now they're young, they're healthy, they neither eat nor eliminate, so you can, you don't have to take care of them except love them. That's all you have to do. Isn't that beautiful that she has her dog now too? That's wonderful.
And as far as her home, her house, she really loved the house that we had here in Denver, and so she said she could through her mind she could envision living in the Taj Mahal, but she wants to live in the house in her realm now, like she lived in the house in Denver. So she has through thought. Everything is done through thought. Through thought, she has created the house that she lived in Denver in her realm and lives there. And it's very interesting thing. And she always wanted to remodel the kitchen when she was in Denver in our house. And so she remodeled the kitchen by thought in her realm now.
Yep. That's again such a typical story. We hear from, because usually the first spouse to pass will create the family's home, and very often it will be a recreation of the family's favorite home from when they were here, just like she's done that there. But often they'll make changes to it. What one widow was furious. Her husband had made what she called ugly changes he had wanted to make and never could quite afford before he left. Another woman was upset. Her husband had created the house well enough, but it was a mirror image of it. Everything was in the wrong place. So some husbands don't do so good a job, but it sounds like she's doing a good job creating the house there for you. And it's solid, everybody. The point is they can, with their minds, create solid objects. They're not made out of earth matter. They're more solid than that, in fact.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I do want to mention is she had a lovely Jaguar automobile sedan here on Earth, and she really loved that car. It was her car, her car she really loved, and so she created that car and put it in the garage in her house in heaven, and she can drive it by by thinking up roads. She will think up where she wants to go. The road will appear, and she can drive the car. It's just
Oh, life
it,
is so easy. Right.
Roberta,
Life there is so
from our
easy.
standpoint, it's really unbelievable, but it's true. It happens. It happens.
One of the things people there have a lot of fun with is vehicles. We hear quite a bit about the vehicles. Some people will recreate a favorite, car or boat from this life. Other people will create outlandish looking vehicles, and we're told that they're powered by mind, so there's no exhaust or anything, and they can just go around all over in their mind created vehicles. A little one fellow had 4 seats in his, only they were side by side because he wanted everybody to be on the front seat. And there are boats. Some people have created yachts there. One woman created for her husband a big, 100+ foot yacht because he always wanted one and they never could afford it. Well, you sure can afford it in heaven. So there they are. And the seas are not big like the seas here, but they feel as if they are. There isn't really any distance at all there, but there feels as if there is. So they're off cruising on their yacht now. Quite amazing and beautiful. So she goes on these trips. Who is she playing with? I mean, who are the people around her? Are there people you would know?
Well, yes. In fact, her relatives, her father, her mother has now passed away. Her father, her mother, um, and some relatives that she really didn't ever know before when she was on Earth. And she's met them and gotten to know them. So there's a whole community, a group of relatives that communicate and are living, uh, not living together, but they're living in the same area that she's living in.
There may well be other people. She may not tell you about them because it wouldn't matter to you, but many times there are friends and loved ones from other lifetimes that we could meet up with again and play with again. And it's a common thing for that kind of thing to happen if we were very close to other people. And typically, one of the questions I've been getting more and more is people worry that someone that they loved will reincarnate right away, so they won't get to see that person when they finally graduate too. And that doesn't happen. Typically, everyone who graduates dies. Everyone who graduates will live with, play with relatives, friends from this lifetime and other lifetimes, while they wait for everybody that they knew in this life to also graduate. And typically, very typically, almost exclusively, they do not even think about starting to reincarnate until they've had the chance to greet everyone and welcome them home. So don't worry that someone you love won't be waiting for you, because they all will be. It's quite it's really quite everything we worry about, we don't need to worry about. Just accept that as a kind of a blanket issue. But she lives in this house, and does she like give parties? How does she? Because there's no sleeping there. That's another thing. It never gets dark, and you never have to sleep. So there's a lot of time there, quote time, even though there's no time. What does she do with her time then? Does she have friends over?
Well, she has friends over. She had dinner parties, but she spends a lot of time in what we call the house of learning, the halls of learning, where she can go back in time, and if she wants to, for example, if she wanted to know what was happening in Napoleon's time, she could actually go back in time to find out exactly what's happening in various eras of different time. Roberta, one thing I do want to talk about, I want to touch on, are these signs and manifestations, because it took me a while for my ego to really believe what was happening. And so she showed me many signs, many manifestations that are all written in the books, and they're just unbelievable things that would happen as far as signs and manifestations.
That's there are places where we can go, halls of records, where we can go and actually participate in reliving certain periods of history with the people who were initially in those periods of history. One of the most popular, apparently, is major events from the American Revolution. I mean, if you'd like to watch them, debate the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution, apparently you can do that. I don't know quite how, but they do that. What about concerts? You say she's been to concerts. Who has she heard?
Well, the amazing thing to me is people like various figures like have passed away, have died on Earth, and they are there also, and they're giving concerts. It's just crazy. And she says the operas that she goes to, the operas are twice as beautiful as the operas that we have on Earth.
Yes.
And it's just amazing. So she spends a lot of time in halls of learning. She's also studying she's studying biology. She always loved biology, and she's studying biology that we have, and going deeper into biology on things that we on Earth had never ever thought about in the form of
yes.
biology.
Yeah, that's a good point. Many of the discoveries that happen on Earth really happen there first in laboratories where people whose names you'd recognize are still doing their work and making their inventions and discoveries, and they generally will channel them into more than one person here to develop and come out with, in case somebody sort of drops the ball on them. But that's why sometimes discoveries are made in the several different places on Earth at the same time. They're really made in the what we think of as the afterlife, but really it's real life, and it's quite comforting to know how careful they are of us, trying to keep us focused, learning what we need to learn while we're here, and not afraid. That's really the goal. And one of the things that you told me she's doing, and this is very significant, is caring for children.
Yes, she is. Of course, obviously, children that die either usually in accidents or death some way on Earth. As children, they go to heaven as well, and they grow up in heaven. But they're confused when they get to heaven because obviously their parents are not there. And so what she's helping with a lot of other people are helping too is they're taking these little children under their wing and helping them realize what's happened, and then realize that someday they will be reunited with their parents.
The fact that she is working with the little ones tells us conclusively that she is a very good, very wise, very kind person, because they are extremely fussy. It's amazing on who they'll even allow to go near the children. The children generally, unless they live with a relative, sometimes a grandma will take them in. But if there's nobody there, then they will live in a children's village or a children's home, and they are treated there like royalty. Even miscarried babies grow up there. Even aborted babies grow up there. It's people who have had an abortion need to be prepared for the fact that when they get there, there'll be beautiful young people calling them mom and loving them and not blaming them at all. Knowing that, frankly, if I were ever thinking of having an abortion, I would have never had one. Knowing that, I can't imagine the feeling of seeing that this lovely person could have been in your life your whole life, and only now are you even meeting them. But nevertheless, she's a wonderful person, or they would not have allowed her anywhere near the children. So you could be proud of her that she even has that job.
Well, thank you. And one thing I'd like to do, Roberta, I'd like to come back to signs and manifestations for a minute, because once Sue started coming through, I was wondering well